They think they've got you all figured out. Don't they? They think your quiet means you're clueless. They mistake your calm for weakness. And behind your back, oh, they whisper. They roll their eyes when you speak, trade jokes at your expense, and nod to each other like they know something you don't. But what they don't realize is this: God has a habit of hiding his fiercest warriors in the most unassuming places. The world, it loves the glitter, the surface, the show. But God, he's looking deeper. He sees what they miss. He sees the fire tucked away behind your quiet eyes. He sees the wisdom you're feeding in secret, the strength you're building where no one's watching. That's where the real power lives. Some people are loud because they're empty. They fill the air with noise so they won't have to face the silence inside themselves. They chase attention like oxygen, desperate to feel important. But you've been learning a different rhythm. God has been teaching you how to walk in silence, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough not to react to every insult, every slight, every test. He's been training your hands for battle and your heart for patience. He's not pushing you down, he's setting you apart. Those who look down on you, those who treat you like you're small, have no idea they're witnessing the rise of someone called, chosen, and unstoppable. Don't panic when they underestimate you, it's part of the plan. They underestimated David too, just a shepherd boy, overlooked even by his own father, not invited to the anointing. But God said, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart." And in that shepherd's heart, he saw a king. In you, he sees the same kind of greatness. So don't waste your breath explaining yourself to people who can't see what God is doing. There's a blessing in being underestimated. There's power in being overlooked. While they're sleeping on you, you're waking up to your purpose. While they mock your simplicity, you're mastering your craft. While they pretend you're nothing, heaven is setting your table. That silence you carry, it's not empty. It's sacred, it's heavy with preparation. And when the moment comes, they won't understand how you rose so fast, how you endured so much, how the person they dismissed walked out with favor. It won't be because you shouted louder, it'll be because you stayed faithful. Not because you fought back, but because you fell to your knees. The world doesn't recognize that kind of power, because it doesn't know the price you paid, the tears, the lonely nights, the trust that made no sense at the time. Right now, you're growing in secret, healing in hidden places, rising where no one is watching. Let them talk, let them laugh, let them assume you're weak. God is behind the scenes of your story, and when he decides it's time, no one can stop the reveal. You're not here to win their approval, you're here to fulfill his purpose. And when the timing is right, your silence will roar louder than their mockery. Because some of the most dangerous people on this earth are the ones who listen more than they speak. They observe, they learn, they wait, and when the time comes, they don't make noise. Their results do. That's what God is building in you. A life that doesn't need applause. A strength that doesn't need permission. A mission that doesn't beg for validation. Yes, it feels lonely. Yes, it feels misunderstood. But that's because you're not being built for the crowd. You're being built for the calling. And when you finally stand in the victory they swore you'd never see, when you walk in blessings they tried to block, you won't even have to say, "I told you so." You'll just keep walking. Because when they pretended you were foolish, God was teaching you wisdom. When they mocked you, they were only revealing the gap between your grace and their pride. So don't rush the process. Don't bend to opinions. Stay low, stay humble, stay faithful. Let them think you're nothing, because while they pretend, heaven is preparing. And God, he never wastes silence. Silence isn't weakness. It's not surrender. It's not fear. It's the language of the Spirit. The world can't understand it, because they think if you don't argue, don't shout, don't fight back, you've lost. But the truth? Silence is the shield of the wise. When you know who you are, and more importantly, who God is in you, you don't need to waste your breath proving it. You don't need to raise your voice to be powerful. The greatest strength you can carry is peace in the middle of chaos. And that kind of peace? It's born in the understanding that your silence is not an absence, it's armor. It's a shield you've built, brick by brick, around your heart. You're guarding your mind. You're guarding your destiny. Because deep down, you know, not everything deserves your reaction. And not everyone deserves an answer. Some of you have stood in rooms where every glance felt like a verdict. Where you were misjudged, overlooked, maybe even openly insulted. They thought you didn't notice. They assumed your silence was ignorance. But you caught every word. You felt every jab. You simply chose not to respond. And that, right there, is what they'll never understand. The strength it takes to stay quiet when every part of you wants to speak. You could have clapped back. You could have dropped the truth you carry and left them exposed. You could have corrected their lies, embarrassed them in front of everyone. But you didn't. Why? Because you understand that what is sacred is never thrown into the street like cheap gossip. What is holy is never up for argument with people who have no intention of understanding. God's Spirit doesn't always arrive with a crash of thunder or a burst of noise. Sometimes, He moves in a whisper. Sometimes, He moves in stillness so deep, it feels like time itself has stopped. And if you really want to hear Him, you have to quiet the noise, both outside and inside. That's why your silence matters so much. It's not just about protecting yourself from other people's venom. It's about positioning yourself before God. Because when you stop talking, you start listening. And when you start listening, He speaks. And when He speaks, He doesn't just soothe your wounds, He gives you the wisdom you need for the road ahead. Don't let anyone drag you into emotional traps. Don't let their insults become your conversation. Don't allow their chaos to set the climate of your soul. You weren't built for that. You weren't made to react to every stone thrown your way. You were made to rise above it. And that rise, it always begins with restraint. Every time you choose not to engage in foolishness, you're growing stronger. Every time you choose peace over pride, you win a battle that no one else even sees. I know it hurts when people lie about you. I know it burns when they twist your words, when they misrepresent your heart, when they tell stories that leave out the truth. But don't chase down every rumor. Don't waste your life trying to clean up every mess they make with your name in it. Because here's the thing. Silence outlives slander. Time exposes what noise tries to hide. And God, He honors the ones who trust Him enough to keep their hands clean, to fight their battles without getting dirty. Remember, even Jesus stood before Pilate, faced with questions, accusations, demands, and the Bible says He answered not a word. He had nothing to prove. Truth doesn't argue with deception. Light doesn't debate with darkness, because light simply shines. And truth simply stands. That's what your silence is doing right now. It's standing when they expect you to fall. It's shining when they want you to fade. It's proving that strength doesn't have to shout. There's power in stillness. There's wisdom in not reacting. And when people pretend you're foolish, they're not insulting you. They're revealing something about themselves. So when they push, when they bait you to lash out, when they try to force you into proving them wrong, don't take it. Because your silence isn't for them. It's for you. It's the sacred space where your soul and God's plan meet. It's where He teaches you to trust Him more than your emotions, to lean on His direction more than your own logic. Let them wonder what's on your mind. Let them be unsettled by your calm. Let them waste energy trying to decode your quiet, while you conserve yours for something far greater. You're saving your words for the right moment. You're waiting for the appointed time. You're listening more than you speak. Because you're moving with purpose, not impulse. You don't have to be loud to be heard in heaven. You don't have to be seen by people to be held by God. So walk in silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because what you carry is too valuable to waste on the noise of the world. Let your silence be your shield. And in that silence, God is still speaking. Every insult you've endured, every time someone laughed at your dreams, every whisper behind your back, it wasn't wasted. Not one word, not one wound slipped past His notice. The enemy wants you to believe those moments were the end of you. But in truth, they were fuel. Fuel meant to push you deeper into your purpose. If you don't waste them on bitterness, if you don't let your heart turn hard, God will take those very moments and use them to lift you into the place He's preparing. Rejection has a way of waking up your calling. Insults have a strange way of sharpening your vision. When they laughed, when they counted you out, when they said you'd never make it, they weren't destroying you. They were chiseling you. If you had reacted in anger, if you had let their poison seep into your spirit, you might have missed the blessing hidden in the breaking. Because bitterness, it's a thief. It steals your clarity, your joy, your focus. It keeps you stuck in rehearsing the same hurt until you forget who you really are. Don't give them that kind of power. Don't let their cruelty become your identity. You are not what they said. You are not the joke they told. You are not the label they stuck to you. You are who God says you are. And every insult? It's just another sign you're rising higher than they expected. People don't throw stones at what's behind them. They aim for what's ahead. So if you're being attacked, misunderstood, underestimated, it's because something in you threatens the world around you. And if you carry that pain the right way, if you lay it at God's feet instead of lashing out, that pain becomes power, that rejection becomes revelation, and that insult, it becomes instruction. But make no mistake, it was a test. Every single insult you've endured, every whispered word, every sideways glance, every attempt to provoke you, all of it was a test. And the question has always been the same: will you react out of vengeance? Or will you rise with vision? Will you let their words take up space in your spirit like unwanted tenants? Or will you evict every lie with the truth God has spoken over you? Because the moment you open the door to bitterness, your walk slows, your focus shifts, the promise ahead starts to blur. You find yourself swinging at shadows, fighting battles that were never yours to fight. And God never called you to live like that. He called you to walk in grace, to bless those who curse you, to love those who hate you, not because they deserve it, but because you've grown beyond the need to prove anything to them. That's what strength in the Spirit looks like. That's what it means to walk in purpose. Yes, you could retaliate. You could clap back. You could give them exactly what they deserve. But instead, you choose peace. You choose stillness, not because you're weak, but because deep down you know, you've already won. Victory doesn't always show up in the words you speak. More often, it shows up in the battles you quietly overcome. So let them insult you. Let them try to break you. Every plan meant to harm you, God will flip it and use it for your good. But that only happens if you refuse to let bitterness plant its roots. Don't replay the hurt like a scene on repeat. Don't feed the memory with your focus. Hand it over. Say, Lord, I don't want to waste this pain. Use it, shape me through it, build something out of it. Because if you let Him, He will. Some of your greatest growth will come directly from the people who tried to crush you. Some of your clearest vision will come from those who once confused you. And some of your deepest strength will be born from the very moments that nearly broke you. None of that is coincidence, it's divine design. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't waste rejection. He doesn't waste the moments that drove you to your knees, because it's there, on your knees, that you learned how to stand. There are blessings waiting on the other side of your restraint. There are doors that only open after you've chosen forgiveness. There are breakthroughs reserved for those who walk away in silence instead of standing in the street, fighting for validation. And when you get to that place, when you release the insult, when you stop trying to prove yourself to those who doubted you, you'll feel freedom flood in. You'll breathe easier. You'll realize that what they said never really mattered, but what God is doing always did. So don't let it make you bitter, let it make you better. Don't carry the weight of their opinions, carry the weight of God's calling. Move forward not with anger burning in your chest, but with holy fire in your soul. Because they didn't break you, they pushed you. And if they hadn't pushed, you might still be sitting in comfort. But now you're rising, and their words are just fading echoes behind you. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to stay silent and let them talk. Let them think they've figured you out. Let them misread your quiet as confusion. Let them keep speaking, because while they're busy filling the air with noise, you're running the race God set before you. While they're trying to define you, you're being refined by something infinitely greater than their opinions. You're not standing still, you're standing strong. Because in your silence, you are listening, you are learning, and whether they realize it or not, your quiet is allowing them to expose more about themselves than they ever intended. The world is loud, full of voices convinced that being heard is the same as being wise. But wisdom doesn't always make noise. Discernment doesn't demand attention. In fact, some of the sharpest discernment is wrapped in quiet patience. And while others talk, those with understanding are still, gathering truth, weighing motives, watching patterns unfold. You're not being passive, you're being precise. You're not weak, you're watching. You're not falling behind. You're staying in step with a God who often speaks in whispers. There's something holy about restraint. Something powerful about letting others say too much while you say nothing at all. That's not fear, it's wisdom. That's not the silence of defeat, it's the silence of strategy. Because you know what it means to observe without reacting. And in that sacred space, God reveals what's real. He lets you see past the masks. He shows you the motives behind the words. He makes it clear who's truly for you, and who only says they are. And you discover all of this, not in noise, but in stillness. You've been in rooms where people smiled to your face, yet their words behind your back cut deep. You've caught the subtle jabs, felt the cold hiding behind polite tones. And still, you said nothing. You kept your peace, not because you were unaware, but because you knew who was standing with you. You knew that your silence would guard your integrity. You knew God would defend you in ways your words never could. So let them talk. Let them underestimate you. Every time they think you're not paying attention, you gain more clarity. Every time they assume you're slow, you're actually storing up what matters. Every time they call you weak, you're winning battles they can't even see. Because here's the truth. The quiet ones are often the most dangerous. Not because they want to be seen, but because they don't waste their energy trying. Earlier, we talked about the power of silence, that place where, instead of arguing, we choose to stand firm, observe, and let time and truth speak for themselves. And now, you'll see something. That silence is not a stopping point, but a preparation for a powerful breakthrough. There are people, just like you, quietly storing it all up, patiently waiting for the very moment God says, "Move forward." Do you know? Jesus did the same. He didn't respond to every accusation. He didn't rush to defend himself when misunderstood, because he knew the truth was strong enough to speak on its own. Words may be like the wind, fleeting, but truth, like light, will eventually reveal everything. Learn to live that way. Let the truth fight for you. Let your actions speak. Let the fruit you bear become living proof. Choking out every lie without you ever opening your mouth. That is real strength, the kind that doesn't perform, but endures and prevails. Don't be in a hurry to be understood. Don't be quick to defend yourself when people twist your motives. The God who has seen you in the secret place will personally reward you in the open. You don't need to campaign for recognition. You don't need to chase your own reputation. Stay grounded, stay focused, because the loudest voices often belong to the most directionless people. And you are on a mission. You are not here to win petty arguments, but to fulfill a calling. They may think they are ahead of you. They may laugh behind closed doors, but God has not finished writing your story. Your silence now is not the end, it's the pause before the music swells. The moment just before the breakthrough comes. And those who mocked your stillness will one day be silenced by the fruit you produce. Because when they talk too much, they expose themselves. Gossip, criticism, false assumptions, all of it reveals the true state of their hearts. And that's the clarity God wants you to see. Not everyone who smiles at you is safe. Not everyone who praises you means it. Sometimes, the best thing God can do for you is let them talk long enough, until their own words paint the real picture of who they are. So don't lose your composure. Don't let the noise break your focus. Let them keep talking, keep guessing, while you continue building something sacred in silence. There will come a time when your life will speak volumes, without you saying a word. There's a kind of strength this world will never understand, the strength of someone who knows how to stay quiet and work. Someone who doesn't need to announce what they're building, because they know when the harvest comes, the fruit will speak for itself. It's a strength that doesn't need applause to remain faithful. That doesn't need the spotlight to stay steadfast. You don't need to explain your dreams. You don't need to justify your vision. You don't need to convince anyone to understand the calling that was given specifically to you. Because if they didn't hear God when He gave it to you, then no matter how much you explain, they still won't understand. Stop wasting your breath trying to get someone to believe in something God never revealed to them. Your job is not to be understood, your job is to be obedient. And obedience in silence is the highest form of trust. It means you're not doing it for the eyes of people. not for likes, not to prove a point. You're doing it because God placed it in your heart, and that is enough. That's where your danger lies, not in your noise, but in your discipline, not in your words, but in your consistency, not in your platform, but in your purpose. People may laugh, they may call you delusional, they may say you're wasting your time, but they don't see the fire God has placed inside you. They don't see the hours you've spent in prayer, the tears, the sacrifices. They see silence, but God sees movement. And when the time comes, what you've built in the dark will shine brilliantly in the light, not because you forced it, not because you promoted yourself, but because God lifts up those who wait on Him. While they spent their time talking, you spent yours preparing. And when the gates of blessing swing open, they will ask, "When did that happen?" And the answer will be simple: it happened when I was silent, when I was still, when I trusted God more than people. You don't need to announce every step you take. The more you say, the easier it is for others to sabotage. When you move in silence, you move under a covering. When you walk in private faithfulness, you walk in protection. The less they know, the less they can stop. So stay low, stay quiet, and keep working, because often, those who talk the most do the least. But those who stay quiet are the ones building the deepest foundations. The enemy wants to pull you into debates. He wants to lure you into wasting time defending yourself. But don't fall for it. Your energy is too precious. Your time is too sacred. Every second you spend explaining yourself to someone who doesn't want to listen is a second stolen from the work God told you to do. Let them doubt you. You remember what we just talked about, the power of silence. That's not weakness. But preparation? Well, here's the thing. While others waste their breath talking, you've got something far more important to do. Let them talk. You have something greater to build, something that will last beyond this lifetime. There's something sacred about working quietly. It's not just staying away from noise, it's about keeping your spirit in tune with heaven. Because when you're still, when you choose quiet over chaos, you can actually hear His voice. When you stop rushing, you begin to sense His presence. And when you stop talking so much, you start truly listening. Listening to God will always take you further than trying to impress people ever could. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not invisible. You're in training. You're in preparation. And this season of silence is not a pause in your progress. It's the very foundation for something extraordinary. So keep showing up. Keep putting in the work. Keep seeking God in the secret place. Because when the moment comes, what He's been building inside you will speak louder than words, so loud that no one will be able to deny it. And it won't be because you shouted it from the rooftops, but because God Himself made it undeniable. So don't get discouraged. Don't get distracted. Don't let bitterness take root. Just keep building. Keep moving. Let your silence be the sound of your faith. There will come a day when the very people who mocked you will have nothing left to say. Not because you argued, not because you fought back, but because you kept walking forward. You didn't respond with your lips, you responded with your life. You didn't waste your energy proving your worth. You let God reveal it in His time. And when He did, it was crystal clear. That's the reward of those who chose to be still. That's the victory of the underestimated, the ones who were laughed at, ignored, overlooked, but kept moving with grace. People are quick to judge the seed before they ever see the tree. They glance at the soil and assume nothing is happening. But just because it's hidden, doesn't mean it's not growing. Real growth takes time. Purpose takes root in silence. While others were staring at the surface, God was working deep underground, stretching you, shaping you, planting something inside you that never needed the approval of men. Because it was born out of obedience to Him. They said you were nothing. They treated you like you didn't belong. They looked past you, over you, through you. But God never needed their permission to fulfill His plan. And now, the very ones who called you foolish are forced to watch as favor follows you. They watch doors open that no one can shut. They witness the blessing, the breakthrough, the glory, and they don't understand it. But you do. You know that your silence was never weakness, it was faith. It was surrender. It was trust. God isn't moved by public opinion. He's moved by private devotion. You honored Him quietly, and now He's honoring you openly. You didn't scream. You didn't quit. You didn't retaliate. You simply kept walking. And now, they see a strength in you that can't be explained away. That's what happens when you let your life speak. When you choose humility over pride, peace over payback, purpose over noise, even your enemies are humbled. They might never say it out loud, but deep down, they know they misjudged you. They thought your silence meant you had nothing to offer. Your stillness meant you had nothing to give. But now, they see the fruit. They see the impact. They see God's hand on your life. And they are silent now, not because they want to be, but because they can't deny what God has done. And here's your reminder. Don't let this make you arrogant. Don't turn this into a moment to gloat. Turn it into a moment to glorify. Point it all back to the one who lifted you when nobody else noticed. Don't waste your energy proving people wrong, when you could spend it praising God for making things right. This was never about revenge. It was always about revelation. God used their doubt to show you who He is. He used their silence to teach you how to hear His voice. Let this moment remind you how far you've come, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. You were never alone, even in the silence, even in the darkness, even in the pain. He was guiding you, teaching you, covering you. And when the time was right, He raised you up, not to embarrass them, but to establish you, not to punish, but to position. Your story was never about proving a point, it was about fulfilling a purpose. Now you carry a quiet kind of power, a peace that doesn't need applause, a strength that doesn't need to shout. You don't need to explain. You don't need to retaliate. Your life is the response. Your peace is the evidence. Your purpose is the answer. And that's more powerful than any argument, louder than any insult, deeper than any wound. So, let them watch. Let them sit in the silence they once mistook for weakness. Because now that silence is filled with the sound of God's faithfulness. What they once ignored, they now can't help but notice. Not because you forced them to, but because God's hand made it impossible to ignore. And when God speaks through your life, no one can silence it. Let your rise be the reply.